And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. Today, we are excited to relaunch our team preview series, the Not So Deep Dives, for the fifth year running and the second year running with our special guest host. To kick things off, we are headed out west to LAFC, and we are really happy to be joined by our first guest of the series, LAFC Dutch Dave, Dave Gomez. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me out. I'm super excited and really excited about this season. There's a lot of potential for just MLS in general, but definitely for LAFC.
Oh yeah, we got so much that we're going to cover in terms of the movements and what to look forward to. But as we always do, before we jump into anything, we got to go to Scarf of the Week. How we start off every episode. What are you rocking today? Tell us a little bit of what you got.
So I'm rocking an LAFC 3252 scarf today. It's something. So I moved to Amsterdam about 4 years ago, and I've been an LAFC supporter since day one. Had season tickets since the jump. Still have my season tickets. And one of the things that I've been a bit of bummed about over the last several years since I moved out here is you couldn't officially join the 3252 because they didn't support foreign addresses. So this past season, they finally were able to, and I was able to rejoin the 3252 and get my scarf. So I'm super happy. Rock it all the time here in Amsterdam, and you'll always see me around town wearing something LAFC.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, my thought this year is to join up to a. I'm a Red Bull supporter, as you can see. I always got a rock a hat. I've got little BWP in the background there, but I was thinking about joining up with one of the supporters group just from afar for the same exact reason, just to be a part of it and support what they do. I went over to the Orlando playoff game. Is only about 6 hours away, so I made a last minute trip to get there. And I was like, man, I love the way that they're doing these things. You know, they're really putting on. So it may be a 2025 investment for sure. I myself am rocking kind of just a basic LAFC scarf. We here at the podcast do as many scarves for as many teams as we possibly can. So we got just LAFC on the end there. It's kind of half and half, but it does the job for what we're trying to do, you know?
Very cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about LAFC's 2024 and what we're looking at in 2025. So LAFC heading into the 2025 year, led by Steve Cherundolo yet again, who has picked up a bit of a reputation, right or wrong, as a guy who makes a lot of deep runs in tournaments, but never can quite get across the line. Last year, they topped the West with 64 points, a 19-8-7 record, and 63 goals scored. And while they did take home the U.S. Open Cup in 2024, they fell in the finals of the Leagues Cup as well in the conference semis to Seattle. They're going to head into 2025 and try and knock this proverbial monkey off the back, if you will, and find success in more knockout tournaments. They're going to play in the Champions League, they're going to play in Leagues Cup, and of course, MLS regular season play, hoping to take home at least one more piece of silverware. But to do that, they needed to bulk up their roster a little bit. I wanted to ask you, Dave, what do you think is their best addition so far?
Well, it's when you ask the question, I think about a couple of things. One is Abobase. Abobase, I think, is going to be a good addition. I think he's a veteran. We've lost a lot of offense. I mean, we're talking about Matty Bogusz. He's gone now. He left for a record signing. Loved him. He will always be back black and gold, in my opinion. But when you're looking at 16 goals plus 30, I think 31 in all competitions that he put in last year, it's a lot of offense that we're going to be missing from him. And then we've got Yaboa, which I think is another good addition. And then there's a couple of young players that I don't know a lot about, but I'm hoping that they're going to be able to produce for us. One's Igor Jesus, and then Odin Holm. So I'm thinking that if you want to go tried and true with the veterans that we have in there, Ibobase is probably going to be good. He's a good proven commodity. He's been around the league a long time, and I think he has enough time and years and still some energy in his tank to where he can really help us in that area from an offensive perspective. And I'm expecting some good things, some other people that we're keeping on the roster, but I think Ibobase is probably going to be the top of the list right now.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. They didn't do a lot last year. We actually went into it thinking like, are they even gonna have enough to make a team at the start of the season? But they were super active this year. A lot of good pieces, and like you mentioned, Obobasi jumps out. But I also want to shout out two other players that weren't mentioned. Mark Delgado, who I think is going to be a huge, huge piece in that midfield. Very, very important in the MLS Cup win for the other LA team that we won't talk too much about here, of course. But I think he's going to help balance out that midfield without bringing Atuesta back. I think, you needed somebody who had that MLS experience, but also can kind of fill as a shuttler role. And I think Delgado will do that really, really well for you. And also something that was done after we were kind of prepping this was Nkosi Tafari. So I actually played against him back on Long Island. He's a Long Island boy. He's a great little player. But what really impressed me about him was his ability to play with the ball. He really likes to break the line with the passes. He's not afraid to be on the ball. And I think having him to learn under Aaron Long and even play next to him at times, I think it'll really, really give another level to what Sharundolo can do with this group. So those two also, along with Abobas, who I think is the kind of A plus, and then the others are A minus, B pluses, right? I think those are definitely some players to keep an eye on for this year.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing that I have learned about John Thornton, I like to call him Johnny T, is trust the process, because he's always like 2 or 3 steps ahead. Everyone's playing normal chess. He's playing 3D chess. So he always surprises me. And we come out with stuff where, like last year, same thing. I thought, oh my gosh, we're not even going to have a roster. And then all of a sudden we have this great roster that he's put together. And then we continue to add pieces as the season goes on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I got caught not trusting the process last year. I think I predicted them in 12th, and we all know how that happened. So the reason I did that was because they lost a lot and didn't bring much in. But this year they've also lost a little bit. Who would you rank as maybe one of the bigger losses that they've had so far? One that you're going to miss more than the others?
Oh, Matty Bogusz, without a doubt. I mean, with hands down, when we first got him, he first came on board. I was very bullish on him, a little optimistic, and I figured that he was probably going to be a better fit in the midfield than when we were playing him up top. But what I didn't realize is that he was going to develop into such a multi-dimensional player. And then when you look at what he's able to do in total offense and production for us, he's going to be missed. I mean, he's not Boanga, which is the jersey that I'm rocking today. He's not Denis Boanga, but he's damn good. And getting 10 million for him, I think is probably going to be turning out to be a steal. And I wish him all the best because I think he's ready for the next level.
Yeah, would completely agree there. I didn't see many others. I was like, oh, you're really going to miss him. But Matty Bogusz is big. And the thing that hurts me the most is he left right before they put the new cash for players rules in. So nobody had a chance to keep him around, and he went to League MX, which for the last year and a half, I've been asking if we're going to keep saying like Liga MX is the one that we're going up against, like we want to beat them in Champions League, we want to beat them in Leagues Cup, whatever. Why do we keep giving them all our best players? So
Yeah.
now, unfortunately he's down that way, but yeah, 15-5 in 2,600 minutes is a great return for somebody of his caliber. And you don't just replace that by, throwing a dart at a board and being like, okay, let's find somebody from this place, right? You got Olivetta, you got Bawanga, like they're going to do the brunt of the work, but it's really going to be interesting to see what happens next. And somebody might need to step up, somebody might need to break out. So let's transition then into who do you think is maybe going to be that breakout player this year, or somebody we should keep an eye on?
I think there's a couple of players that I would think that are going to be really good breakout players. I think, David Martinez, I think it has the potential from what I've seen from him, besides that injury that he got early on last season, which kind of set him back a bit. I like what I see from him. I mean, he needs to put on a little bit more muscle mass, in my opinion, in order to play in this league a little bit more effectively. But his skills, his vision, his desire, it's incredible watching him play. And I think he's probably going to be the number one breakout that I think has the best potential for replacing Matty Bogusz and maybe even doing a little bit beyond that. But I would also not be remiss in saying that, I think Odin Holm is probably going to be another one who I've seen with Celtic play because we get to watch some of those matches out here in Amsterdam. I've seen him play some. He hasn't got a lot of minutes. I think he's been kind of overshadowed by the fact that he's not being able to play all the minutes that we'd like to see him with Celtic. So I'd like to see him actually get out there and get a little bit more good quality minutes under him. I think he has a good potential. And also Igor Jesus. I mean, I hear a lot of good things. I've not seen a lot of the Brazilian league because of the time zones out here. The Brazilian league isn't optimal for me. I normally save my 02, 03, 04 a.m. wake ups to watch MLS matches. So I'm trying to preserve that as much as possible. But, I really, really like what I've seen from him. And an under 22 player, I think he has significant potential to really, really step up his game here because he's going to be afforded quality minutes in Dolo's system.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really good. Last year, I picked David Martinez, and he, like you mentioned, got hurt, didn't really have much of a thing. But I'm going to double up, and I'm going to pick him again. 4 goals, 2 assists in 450 minutes. And when I watched him play, I really enjoyed the way he played, like just his style of play and the way that he gets at players and all the good qualities that you're looking for young out and out wingers. But now that Bogusz is gone, I think he's really ready to make that step. I don't think they let Bogusz go if they don't think they've got either somebody to bring in or somebody to step up. And considering the fact that they haven't brought anybody really into that spot, I think that might be a really big position for him this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So while we look at this 2025 season and we're considering, the year ahead and the roster shape, I kind of want to know is what's the one question you still have about this team? What's the thing that you're still thinking of that you're not so sure about?
Yeah, I'd have to say it's Olivier Giroud. I mean, I love him. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he's got a great attitude. Obviously, he's very good looking. So when you look at him on the pitch and you look at him, he looks like the typical, he is gonna be the guy that you're gonna want on your team. And then when you look at his production at the national level for his, national selection in France, and even in his professional career, he's done fantastic. He didn't do jack, in my opinion. I mean, he scored a goal, an important goal. Don't get me wrong. For LAFC last season, it was very important when he scored that. But he didn't produce what I thought he was. I was hoping him to come in here and give me 8, 9, 10, 12 goals easily during that short time spent. I would have been happy with 6 or 7. But one really isn't enough, especially from the caliber of his play that we've seen him in the past. And I think because of his style and the way that we were playing, he didn't fit quite well. But I'm hoping now that we have half of a season plus this new preseason with him that we'll be able to see him be able to take advantage of that fluidity and that movement and that hunger because he's a typical, I'm going to put my back to the goal. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to score because I'm big and I can do this and I have great technique. And we just weren't able to take advantage of that. So I'm really hoping he's the one question that I have. And if he does not perform, then it's going to open up opportunities for other newer, younger players and possibly, another signing that we can bring in, mid-season that can hopefully produce something because we really need that player to produce, and he just didn't do it last season.
Perhaps one of another French variety,
I'm
if you
hoping,
prefer.
it'd be fantastic if we could get him. I mean, I would not be mad if we got Griezmann. I mean, if we got him on the team, I think he'd be a good fit because I like his tenacity, his low center of gravity, and I think he would fit in quite well in the current mix of players that we have here. Giroud, I'm still not 100% sold on his style. I love it, but our teams over the last several years weren't built in that manner. So, hopefully this season he can really produce for us.
Yeah, yeah. I've always, it's been that rumor that's been circling the last couple of windows now, like Griezmann to MLS, Griezmann to MLS, and then they bring Lloris, and then they bring Giroud, and you're like, he probably wants to go to Miami, but he's got his buddies in LA, and LA is not terrible either. Like you're not asking him to go play, and no disrespect, but you're not asking him to go play in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Minnesota in the wintertime is very rough. I
Yeah.
love Minnesota, but it is very rough in the wintertime.
So that'd be cool to kind of see, and then you get the idea of maybe you've got like 2 super teams, right? You've got the Miamis and the LA, and that'd be another cool thing to see as well. But my question was, I had 2. I had one that was along your line, how long is Giroud going to be the starting 9, if at all, right? Are they going to go with Ebobisse and Giroud, what have you? But the one that I've kind of fallen back on, the big one is do they have another wrinkle in them? And by that I mean like, do they have another system they can go to when things get stale or overworked? So last year, every time I watched LA, and admittedly I didn't watch them every week, but every time I watched them, it felt transition central, right? Get the ball. Can we find Ebobisse out wide? Ebobisse. Can we find Bouanga out wide? Can we find Oliveira out wide? Can we find Bogusz out wide and just let him go and let him go and let him go and let him go? And eventually they ran out of gas, right? Eventually they got tired, production fell off, and they didn't really have a plan B. At least it felt that way to me. So are they going to find the ability to tactically adapt to those situations, or are they just going to stick to it and hope for the best? So that's kind of something I'm going to be watching as we get into the year, because I feel like if you want to get that, reputation away of, oh yeah, you can make it to finals, but you can't get over the hump, you have to have some sort of plan B if things go wrong.
Yeah, I think we do have a good plan B in place, and I think it was probably a little bit unfair in my opinion of me even being that critical of them of not being able to get over the hump because in reality we've been to what 6 7 finals over the last couple of seasons. I mean that's incredible. We
Oh
didn't
yeah.
win them all, and I'm not necessarily happy at the fact that we didn't win them all. We did win the U.S. Cup, which I'm super happy about, but we were there and we were always fighting. And it did feel like at times that we were just running out a little bit of gas. But we played over 50 matches the past 2 seasons, the only MLS team to ever do that. I mean, that's a lot of matches, and really, if I'm glad we've relaxed some of the roster or salary cap restrictions this season. I think we need to see more of that in order for us to be competitive. But if they're expecting the top playing teams are going to be in all these competitions to not have a bigger roster, you're going to continue to see that. Liga MX, is going to continue. I mean, the average salary, LAFC has a higher salary on average than most MLS teams, but still, when you look at it compared to Liga MX, we're way in the bottom third. So we've got to have some legs in there, and I think this new roster with a mix of young and old and some veterans and some good under 22 players. I think we have some good potential this season, but you're right. I think Dolo needs to really dig down deep and maybe look at a 3-5-2 or, some other types of formations, depending. I think he does good in game match to match makeups, but we just were gassed at times. And I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. There were times when you're just looking at it going, oh, we just need that extra gear. And it just wasn't there.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. If they can find that wrinkle, I think it takes them to that next level because the West is not easy, right? The East is tough, but the West is not easy either. So, and again, you're competing in other tournaments, right? You've got Leagues Cup where you got to go up against Liga MX sides. Hello, Grace. Yeah, so can you compete in those Leagues Cup moments? Can you compete in those Champions League moments, right? That's the big one. At the end of the day, that's the one you want. The only team that can go out and say, "Yeah, we've won the thing," is Seattle, right? And
Yeah.
and you want to be a part of that list. You want to be a part of changing that narrative. So how are you going to do that, right? And that's going to be really interesting to watch. So we're sitting here, we're talking about potential, we're talking about excitement. Now it's time to put that into a tangible number. Give me a predicted finish. It can be a range, right? I usually do a range of like 4 spots. Give me a predicted finish for LAFC. Where do you think they will finish?
Yeah, so I'm an LAFC homer. I'm an LAFC founding member, still a season ticket holder. So I'm going to say number one or two in the West. I think that honestly, looking at where our roster is now, what we've added, the potential for adding maybe an Antoine here, in the next window or not, I think we definitely have that potential. If we come up every single season, every single year, I expect us to win it all. I want all the hardware. So if we're not there and we win one trophy, fantastic. If we don't win them all, I feel a little bit disappointed. I'm grateful for the fact that we do win hardware, very much so, but we got to come in number one. I mean, it's win it all or nothing, in my opinion.
I like it. I like that, and it's a nice feeling to have as a Red Bull fan. I haven't had the my team is going to win something feeling in 8 years now. So, it's nice to get to that point. As I mentioned, I was brutally wrong on my LAFC prediction last year. They proved me very, very much wrong. They provided a ton of reinforcements of very good quality this year. So I'm going to say that this is another home playoff year sort of position for me. So I've got them in the 1 to 4 range. And with the movement that I'm seeing so far as of recording this on the 1st of February, I don't see many teams that I look at and like, oh, they might be better than them. So I'd say maybe the 1 to 3 or even 1 to 2 range is probably a safe bet for them for sure.
I'll sign off on that memo for sure. And by the way, I am going to be able to make it to the season opener this year, which is the first time in a couple of years. So I'm super excited. We're going to get to meet our brand new grandson, and we're also going
Nice.
to tie that in
Congratulations.
with. Thank you very much. Tie that into the season opener. So I'm super excited to be back at BMO, or make California, whatever you want to call it from that perspective. Our stadium back at home.
Wonderful. So congratulations for that. I want to give you a minute here just to tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Blue Sky Social at LAFC Dutch Dave bluesky.com. You can also find me on Instagram at LAFC Dutch Dave. I live and breathe LAFC. I love football. I wasn't a big MLS fan up until, honestly, until LAFC came into the league. I was a big EPL fan. Barca. I've been to matches out here multiple times here in the Dutch league. But when we came in, being part of a brand new team and being able to be part of that growing of that community, it's incredible. And I am so blessed to be part of that, because it was an experience like another. It's just awesome. And the way that LAFC's done it and the way they interacted with the community was fantastic. So if you ever have an opportunity to join a sports franchise from the very foundation, I highly recommend it, because it's nothing like you will ever experience in your life.
I will second that. I tell you, when I was in Orlando, it was like me and I was surrounded by Orlando fans, which is fine. They're very, very good. But at the end of the game, it was kind of just us all taking it in, and I wasn't a part of it. But all the supporters who traveled were down there with the players, taking pictures with the cops, celebrating, getting things signed, and it just kind of hit you. I mean, we're Orlando from New York is. I mean, it was the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
this wasn't like, oh yeah, I've got tons of time to go do this. Like this was a last minute on a dime, pivot. I mean, we had 150, 200 people show up, and just
Wow.
to see that connection and to see that get in was next level to me. I sat there and I watched it for 30 minutes. I didn't not a single player even acknowledged me, but I just watched it all in, and that's what hit you like, oh, this is what this is all about. So even if you can't do it from the ground up, I would suggest getting involved right now. Be a part of it, right? And I do want to ask you one question now, since you've got a little bit of the both sides of this. I hear a lot of times like, oh, MLS and the Dutch league are at this level together, and if it wasn't for Ajax and Feyenoord, our top guys can compete with their top guys. Our bottom guys are better than their. What do you see? I'd like to just take that in, and no bias here, by the way. We are an MLS podcast, but no bias. We'd love to hear it on just straight up.
Yeah, no, I think our top level teams in MLS compete well. We'll compete well, and we'll finish in the top half of the Eredevise. I think definitely from a skills perspective. I think the styles of play are quite different. They're more of a tiki taka, touch ball, and we're still a bit more physical in a lot of respects from that perspective. But then when you talk about their top three teams, PSV, Feyenoord, and Ajax. Ajax is a local team, Amsterdam. Ik woon in Amsterdam. They definitely have a different level of quality of talent and coaching, and I think they compete much better and will probably dominate in our league for
Mhm.
most respects, to be quite honest with you. But I think we would definitely respectfully hold our own in most of the time. And when you're looking at the bottom, Volendam and some of the other smaller communities out here, I mean, they're tiny towns. Like Volendam has like 25,000 people. So if we're losing to the Volendams of the world, okay, we got problems, right?
Right.
Because we're definitely paying our players better than that, and we have more of a talent pool than that. There's only 17 million people here in the Netherlands, so I think we do quite well. I would honestly put us MLS above their Eredivisie as far as quality overall on average
Mhm.
at this point in time.
Interesting. Yeah. Because that's kind of the funny part and this is completely off a LAFC topic now, but we see that conversation all the time. Like the people who don't watch MLS are like, oh, Eredivise and the Dutch fourth division is better than MLS. And then people are like, well, no, I would say that if it would, but none of us actually watch it enough to be like, no, this is legit. So to have that insider perspective was pretty cool. But thank you so much again for being here. We really enjoyed this conversation. Make sure if you guys are new here, you guys are coming over from Dave, make sure you guys follow us because we've got 29 more interviews with 29 more creators and fans to talk about the other 29 teams in preview for the 2025 season. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Not So Deep Dives on the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.